All right. Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Real Fish Tack numeral 20.
20?
Yeah, we're hitting 20. That's kind of an accomplishment. What does that mean? We were only doing one a week. Well, no, we were still putting it on the podcast, so that's still 2 a week. So, yeah, we're at month 2.5, 2.25, 2.25. Yeah,
20's good either way.
yeah, 20 is
right?
a solid number. I think we're starting to figure out how to spell real fish talk. I don't have to look it up in the dictionary anymore.
That's
So
right.
that's good. We're saving time. Repetition's getting us there.
Repetition.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk about one of the streams I've done on my show that did really well, and that is cleaner fish or shrimp or snails or basically things that go into that aquarium that are not electrical that help clean your aquarium.
Oh, yeah.
Although I think you could make a case that like an electric eel being a scavenger still cleans but is electrical.
I suppose you're
you got to
right.
rule that out. Electrical things kind of count too in a
Yeah.
weird way. So I know that people walking into my store, the number one fish requested is a cleaner fish.
Right.
I need it to clean my aquarium. So I like to start with, there is nothing that will clean your aquarium. So kind of like for my house, there's nothing that will just straight up clean my house except for like another human. I could hire a human, or my wife could do it, I could do it, but a human will clean, and that's the same thing with a fish tank. A human cleans a fish tank. There are, like my dogs, if I spill, a piece of pizza on the floor, they'll help me. They'll help clean it up more than if I did nothing. But my dog's tongue, it's this big because it's a Chihuahua.
Right.
It's going to leave some residue there, and I still have to come back and clean up afterwards.
Some residual.
Yeah, some residual pizza numbs. And so that's kind of what aquarium fish do, I think, really, is it doesn't leave, So, like, even if my dog eats that pizza, it's got to go to the bathroom. And then someone's got to clean that up. And that's what it comes down to in an aquarium is we might have fish breaking stuff down, but then they go to the bathroom. And who breaks that down? And then who breaks that down? And they tell 2 friends. And they tell 2 friends. So it's one of those things that we kind of want to work down the chain. There definitely are organisms, all the way from the fish eats something, and you travel down a chain of critters to bacteria starts eating it. And then you might even go, well, anaerobic bacteria is eating that. But then there's still byproduct from the anaerobic bacteria. And then you could make a case that, but then the plants are eating that. Right. But then eventually still comes a point where someone's got to trim the plants. Yeah. Or a fish has got to do it. And then the cycle starts all over again. So it gets weird when you're looking at that stuff. So for fish, I think one of the common ones that people buy to clean their aquarium, well, I think there's 2. I think there's Plecostomus, and I think there's corydoras.
Yeah.
They do completely different purposes, in my opinion. Well, yes, the ones you're going to buy normally at a store. Because I was like, well, there are Plecos that are bottom feeders, eat meat, that type of thing. But I'm not going to say few and far between, but if you walk into the aquarium store and you go, I need a cleaner fish, they're not selling you one of those hardcore meat eaters because they're probably expensive,
right?
For a Pleco and stuff like that. So, algae control, I think that's where most people think of an aquarium as clean or dirty, so we should start there. I think I like a Bristlenose Plecostomus. For my money, that's my go-to for anyone. Like, do you have a bristlenose in there yet? And if they're like, no, I'm like, that's probably the answer when it comes to algae problems.
Better yet, you should have 2 bristlenose in there.
Well,
a male and a female.
What if it's like a 4-gallon tank?
Throw it in the garbage.
All right, fair enough. Yeah,
no,
so we'll assume it's big enough.
It shouldn't have any fish in it. Come on, if it's 4-gallon, what are you doing?
Shrimp only.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think a bristlenose is the best general cleaner. Well, that's not true. I've already lied. It's the best choice for most
Did you
people.
lie or were you mistaken?
I was mistaken.
Yeah, there you go.
It's the best choice for most people because I actually think the best all-purpose cleaner in an aquarium out of any fish is just a common goldfish.
Oh,
Those things
that's where you're going?
will chew through everything. I'm just saying.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just saying I think they are the best general all-purpose cleaner. To me, it's like having a dog around. You know, you spill anything, they're going to eat it.
They're going to eat it.
Yeah. Whereas like a bristlenose, I mean, maybe it's like a Roomba. It's
Right.
pretty good, but if you drop that slice of pizza, I'm pretty sure the Roomba's only making it worse. Just pushing around the
It's gonna
sauce.
be a schmear. It's going to be
Yeah.
a light pizza schmear all
Yeah.
about the house.
So, but a bristlenose is super duper good. I love it because it will eat algae off the glass, but then also like pieces of wood. It will kind of keep that. And if you're new to the hobby, maybe you haven't experienced this, but wood grows. I don't want to call it like fungus or algae or it's breaking down. And if
Yeah.
so if you go to a river or a lake and you touch a piece of wood and you pull your hand back and it's like covered in like brown gunky stuff because it's rotten and it kind of came off when you touched it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, what's all that grime?
Probably a mix of mulm, deteriorating wood, bacteria. Well, it's that German word I can never pronounce. Can you pronounce that word?
Which one?
It's like the AUFPHWUTZ. Like I always in my mind it always sounds like something horrible,
Right.
but it's like it's almost like a
The German language just sounds that way.
it's like a auf. It's
Auf.
yeah. I can spell it better than I can say it. But it's their word for basically microfauna.
Okay. I don't know.
Oh my god.
I can't think of what it is. I don't.
In my mind,
Let me
and
you Google as it.
So
Wow.
here, let me preface this with it's going to sound horrible, but in my mind because there's so many crazy letters in it, I'm always thinking like Auschwitz. But it's similar in the way that it's like Auschwitz. Like I can't say the German language at all, and so I'm doing it a huge disservice. But it is the word for basically microfauna. So yeah, Algae spelled it AUFWUCHS.
Where is it at?
In the chat, couple
Algae.
down.
Oh, Aufwuch.
Yeah, it's not that easy, is it? Yeah.
Is it that easy? I don't know if it's that
I didn't
easy.
say it's that easy.
I mean, I can easily say it wrong.
Yeah. So anyway, I definitely say it wrong. And so that's that stuff that's like on that wood, but a lot of Plecostomus and stuff love to eat on that. And when we saw like I was at the catfish convention, there's a lot of catfish or a lot of bristlenose that need to feed on that like all day long. Like they found gold nugget plecos. They were feeding off that kind of biofilm and stuff like that. A ridiculous amount. So much so that they had to spend like 14 hours a day eating or they would just lose way too much weight. And so they're constantly on the hunt. They don't really like light though, so that's kind of a weird thing. So mostly they're going to be really good at cleaning when the lights are out, which is kind of nice. So you just kind of wake up and you go, hey, my aquarium, it looks better. And I've personally seen it at a store where we had this like 130-gallon glass tank and it had just been set up and like let run for like a month at the store, right? Because we were just like letting it cycle, do its thing. And so brown diatom algae was all over the glass, everywhere you could see. And we put one bristlenose in there, and then is it telling you how to say it?
Aufwuchs.
Aufwuchs. Let's play that into the mic. Just
Aufwuchs.
all right.
Aufwuchs. Okay.
But anyway, in
Oh,
the span of like, now you're just gonna troll me with that.
I'm just trolling. You're trolling me with the meow. I'm
Yeah.
trolling you with the Aufwuchs.
In the span of about, I want to say, in my shift, it was like in 7 hours. We like dropped it in the morning, and like before we left work that day, spotless, not a single. So one bristlenose had eaten all the brown diatom algae, so brown you couldn't see in. You know, one of those tanks where it's like, dang, that's a wall of
Yeah.
algae. it was so clean. There was no algae left on the glass like at all, and he polished it off in 7 hours. So that's where I know they're like, man, these things are wicked good. Now, I've told that story about 100 times, and then people will buy that bristlenose, and then they'll come in like the next day like, it didn't eat it. It just so happened that bristlenose living at the store and then moving to another tank that was like larger and the same water, it was ready to get down to work like instantly.
Yeah.
But transferring it to your home or something like that, it might need a few days of adjustment, you know. So I think
I'm excited for more bristlenose in my 240.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. You got to take some home.
I got ants in my pants.
I got bristlenose in my pants. You know. So yeah, I think they're the best all-purpose cleaner because they'll get in between everything they can. Now that kind of brings up a good point, I think, is that there's lots of crevices in your aquarium, you know, so snails, shrimp. What's your go-to, like, out of all the aquariums you've had over the years, which is two?
Two.
Yeah,
Yes.
two. What is the most common thing you've used for, like, and I guess I should pose this question.
Which application, though?
Do you put in a cleaner fish? Like, so when you set up an aquarium, is that in your plan? Like, so let's say like, okay, here's my showpiece fish.
Yeah, I get what you're getting at.
Yeah.
And I can answer that pretty readily.
All right.
Because this has always been my explanation of that is as far as it comes into cleaning an aquarium, my opinion, and I hold steadfast to this, you know, just because. My opinion is the best cleaner that you're ever going to get is yourself, the human. The human is going to be the best cleaner that you're ever going to get. And that being said, we can definitely talk about good cleaning fish because cleaning fish, in my opinion, come into the ecosystem side of it, is that you are building an ecosystem. And that's more the direction that I look for, right? Mainly because of some early mistakes I made in the hobby, realistically. 10, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever. It was like, I think auto sinkless were hitting the market, like probably a decade ago, somewhere around there. It was like, people were like, have you heard about these little auto sinkless fish? And of course, they were probably saying it wrong.
That's funny because I've only been around for like 14 years now, and they were always just a thing when I got into the hobby. I just assumed auto sinkless were around forever.
Yeah, maybe they've been around forever.
Oh, okay.
But that's when people were hot on it.
Okay, I could believe that.
At the time.
Definitely they were.
And it almost is always like, even if you look, if you post it online, I need a fish to help me clean my tank. The first response is get a bunch of auto sinkless. And you're like, yeah, but we don't even know what kind of tank this guy's got.
Yeah,
right.
True.
Now, when that was going on, I made the mistake of putting autos into a tank that was not the right habitat for them. Realistically.
Straight into your African cichlid tank.
No, not that bad, but you know, it was basically along those lines. I put them in a tank that wasn't that good for them, and it was like, clean the tank, and they never cleaned the tank. Sort of like when somebody comes to your store and they buy a bristlenose, and they're like, they didn't clean everything.
Yeah,
and you're like, well, it's not like you hired a maid. You know what I mean? And they're coming, to clean your house.
Though.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are like, I'm buying this fish only to do this job.
Right.
So that I can sympathize with, you know, someone who hasn't been in the hobby long and they're like, no, the guy said this does the thing and it's not doing the thing. Like, I bought a screwdriver to take a screw out of the wall, and it turns out they call this thing a hammer.
Right.
Who knew?
Who knew?
You know, like, yeah.
What's happening?
Yeah. So I could get where they're coming from on that.
So like, you know, people ask me a lot. You know, like I get this question a lot. Like, what kind of cleaner fish should I get to add? And my first, you know, like I was saying, like my first response, my first go-to is like, what are you doing as a person? Like as a human that is taking care of a small ecosystem that even in the regards of an 800-gallon aquarium, it's still a tiny ecosystem.
Yes.
So what are you know, that's always my question is, okay, what are you doing as a person? Are you doing water changes? Are you scraping the glass? Are you changing your filter material?
So
like, what
I
are you
have to
doing?
do at least those three, yeah.
Right. Are you doing charcoal? Are you doing Purigen? What are you doing? Like, what's going on with you? Okay. Then we could go into the question of like what kind of fish would fit within your habitat to make it easier for you to maintain your situation. That's where I would go.
Sure.
Now, when I'm setting up an aquarium, what cleaner fish do I think about? Hopefully, I just explained that a little bit, is that I'm building an ecosystem. So I'd want to get the cleaner fish that would complement the system that I'm building, right? So if I was to be building, let's stay with the autosynclus because I was talking about them. But let's say I was building a system that was South American, Central American, like maybe I was going to have like dwarf baby tears and some of this and some of that and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to have kind of crystal clear water with kind of a neutral pH and that kind of stuff is what I'd be going for, right? Then that would be a great opportunity to bring in a group of autosynclus to help me keep the glass cleaner and also sort of keep the biofilm regenerating pretty quickly because they all going to eat it up pretty quickly. Now, I've had terrible experience trying to do autos long term. That means breeding the colony, maintaining the colony for years and years in one tank. I've never been able to pull it off personally, that to a point where I would go like, wow, pat myself on the back. I did a really good job. That was awesome. It's every single time I've gotten like a year into it where I'm like, oh, everything's going good. Boom. And then something bad will happen. So autosynclus are one of my favorite fish, honestly. You and I were talking about it the other day. I want to get some zebra autos for sure for my 240.
And once I said you crazy.
Once it's getting to the point where that tank is about mature enough where I could add like some zebra autos to it and stuff like that, and not be.
That's a good topic, by the way.
Super concerned about them.
Tank maturity. I think a lot of people don't.
Oh,
they don't weigh that in. We'll say that we'll schedule that for another episode.
Well, that'll be a different
I think
episode.
it's a very important thing that doesn't get talked about. I mean, just as a little primer or a little brief thing right now, as far as I'm concerned, the hobby, like once you test out that you can make nitrates, you're good to go. And I'm very on the opposite end of that scale. But we'll save that because I'm just glad you brought that point up because I'm very passionate about that. But I don't like fighting the entire internet by myself.
Solamente.
We can team up.
You don't want to be solamente fighting a battle?
Yeah.
Well, it's cool. Well, luckily, if it's the two of us, we're powerful enough to actually pick up Jimmy and use him as our
battering ram,
if need be.
Yes.
If it's just one of us, he's kind of squirrely.
He's unwieldy.
And he's unwieldy. But if there's two of us, we can use him as a battering ram right into the internet, right?
Perfect.
I hear him back there sneaking around.
That's right. But one thing I do want to bring up is so that, I always like to break things down if there is new listeners or, new to the hobby. So while autosynclus are great at keeping your glass clean, quote unquote, they only eat certain types of algae and they're only going to do certain things, So if you got like a black beard algae thing going on in the front of your glass, which can happen, not common, but could happen, they're not going to touch it. So most things in nature are designed to eat specific things, like not just all the things. Like we as humans can eat almost anything, but most things, like that autosynclus is really good at diatom algae, maybe a little bit of green algae. And the other thing you touched on there that I thought was important was staying on top of it. So like, let's say you don't have any autosynclus and algae's growing and you just do nothing. Eventually, in my tanks, it like morphs into something worse. Like, oh, I had diatom algae, now I've got green spot algae. And now autos can't even touch that and you got to get a different animal to eat that. But yeah, it's weird because I approach tanks in the same way as an ecosystem, but I only put animals in reactionary. So like now I've got some algae going on in there, and my first inclination is like, well, let me see if I can change the balance in there, and then if I can't, I'll add more autosynclus. Or like in there for algae control, I have some different types of plecos. And when I say in there, I'm talking about this 800-gallon aquarium that on the podcast you can't see. But this 800-gallon aquarium's got some different Plecostomus, like it's got some eating ones. It's got super red bristlenose. I also have a herd of reticulated Hillstrom loaches, and they're pretty good at eating the algae off the glass, but they're really bad at eating the algae off of plants because the plants aren't strong enough to really hold them. So they're not really good at that. And autosynclus, we had them in there, but they just like petered out. And it wasn't. They always had fat bellies. I think they became prey to tiger barbs. I never saw it happen, but and to be fair, it's a big tank. I still see autos in there, but I just don't see them out all the time. And I don't know if it's because the tiger barbs are more boisterous than they used to be or whatnot. But there is some algae on the plants, and so I'm considering like a Siamese algae eater or a Pandagara, something that I'm like, okay, that could. It's not so big and boisterous that it's like gonna rip the leaf off, and it's got a mouth design like a rubber lip, or not a rubber lip, but a bristlenose, and I have a rubber lip in there. Their mouths are so big and wide that a skinny little leaf on that Vallisneria, it doesn't work. Like they can't really suction cup onto it, and they just kind of like they're laying on it and just flops over, and it's not. It's like trying to support yourself with a spaghetti noodle that's been cooked. Like it just ain't gonna work. So yeah, I tend to be reactionary, and with all my aquariums, I'm like, oh god, it looks terrible. All right, let me start adding some animals in there that I think are gonna help. And I try to do it on a slow level. So one of my favorites is snails. Like I'll just go grab snails from a tank that has snails, and I'll drop a handful in, and then be like, let's see how it looks next month. Because the next day you just see like snail trails, and it almost looks worse. Like you'd almost rather have it just be brown than like, well, now it just looks like brown with spaghetti lines through it. Like that just is even worse. But over time, they will get a handle on it, and I find a lot of people want to rush. Like it's better to do the dishes every night and do 5-10 minutes of dishes than it is to wait all month long and then do them all at once. Because then you're in a rush to get them done. Let's say you've got someone come over the next day, you got to get them all done. And I find that's what happens with aquariums is we do wait until it's like, oh God, this is really bad. Like it's ungodly bad. We need to do something about this. And then all of a sudden, when it doesn't get fixed the next day, it's not happening fast enough. Even though we might have taken 8 weeks to get to where we were, we're looking for that instant solution. So I look at it as like a big curve of like, okay, so if this is the curve from clean aquarium to dirty aquarium over here, it happens on this big kind of curve that might take 8 weeks. And at the apex is the top, right? Yeah, at the apex is where you notice it's dirty. So at some point on this line, you go, hey, this thing doesn't look the way I want it to look. And that's when you start employing things to change it. And then hopefully over time, so let's say that's 4 weeks to get to like, hey, this is dirty. And then the next 4 weeks, we would go back down to, hey, it's clean. And I think a lot of people want 4 weeks, get to dirty, and then 4 weeks and 2 days should be spotless. Yeah. And that, you end up, in my opinion, overbuying animals, or, it's like hiring 30 maids. Like maybe you don't hire 30 maids, maybe one more, or not one more, but like a maid coming once or twice a week, and your house is spotless. Instead of, well, we'll hire 30 maids every 3 months. That's just a worse scenario. Like, you're going to spend more money. Yeah. And then you've got your house not being clean. Same thing with the aquarium. So, just add like one maid. And, that being said, when it does come to algae, a lot of times I do recommend multiple things. Like, oh, you got a wicked bad algae problem? Yeah. Get yourself 3 Amano shrimp, 3 autosynclus, and a bristlenose. But maybe it's a 100-gallon tank. I wouldn't be like, oh, you got a 10-gallon? Fill it with all the algae-eating things. So, I don't know. Algae it's an interesting one because I find a lot of times if the only thing you change is the fish, you just grow different algae. So, like, let's say you had brown algae over the glass, you throw in those autosynclus, they eat it and poop it back out. You probably just get string algae or something because the nutrients never left the system at all. Like I've used this to explain it to customers before. A lot of the algae eaters and stuff, they're window cleaners, but they're just knocking everything down to the bottom. Right. And you can see that if you've ever washed your window at a gas station, You know, you're like, oh yeah, look at him cleaning. And you squeegee that stuff off, and all that gunk that runs down your car. It cleaned your window, but now your car is dirtier. So, the same thing happens in the aquarium. Like, yeah, we cleaned that glass, but now our gravel's dirtier. So it's
it's one of those big issues that for instance, like in my 150 right now, right? So the 150. If anybody's confused as to what the 150 is after this show, you can go look up on my channel and see what I'm talking about. But 150-gallon aquarium that basically just has like 1,000 cherry shrimp in it. A bunch of plants and stuff. And so if you go back like 2 months ago or a month ago or whenever I added new lights, right?
Okay.
So I added the Fluval Fresh and Plant 2.0.
It's a good light.
Free plug.
That's right. Fluval tripping.
Fluval's tripping. But
I saw those lights.
So I added that light, which was not necessarily more or less light, but a more effective light, right?
Yeah.
More directional light, that kind of stuff. So right now, I am dealing with a little bit of green spot algae and stuff like that does show up on the glass. Mainly just because that light's just a little more powerful and it's directing light in a certain way. Well, that means that I've got a little more algae in there than I was expecting, but that is kind of a maturing stage of the tank, right? So, because I have this like breeding colony of cherry shrimps in there, there's not much that I can do to like add fish necessarily to it. There's 2 fish in there, 1 male guppy and one female guppy.
A kingdom for them.
And they're offshoots of endlers or whatever. They're from Potato. He posted a big giant explanation of where they came from, and I can't necessarily repeat it. It was long, but good, informative. Anyhow, so I'm getting some green spot algae on the glass and of the tank and that kind of stuff, but there really isn't much that I can do to add a fish right now. Mainly because I have that colony of shrimp in there, and that's what I have to take care of.
And I'm not sure there's a fish that eats that green spot algae.
No. And there are a bunch of people in the chat asking about green spot algae, what's going to get rid of green spot algae. There really isn't anything that eats it. They're just, as far as I know, there probably is something out there that eats it
I know
in the world.
one thing that eats it.
What's that? What do you got?
Narrate snails.
Oh, Narrate snails will eat it.
They just leave their own problem.
Here's a problem, is that with like Narrate snails, will eat it, but they won't clean the whole spot off. They'll just leave little munch marks in it. And
I've seen...
And on top of that you do get rid of the green spot, but they will leave a bright white spot in the place of the green spot.
I have seen an army of them can take it down to the point where you can't see any green spot.
Oh, okay.
But then it looks like it's snowing in your tank.
It looks like it's snowing in there.
There's so many white eggs, and for those of you that don't know about a Narrate snail, they're just this crazy brackish snail / saltwater snail / freshwater snail that does all these modes.
They move about in estuaries.
They get around, you know what I'm saying? They get around. But the problem with that is in true freshwater, which is what we keep, they lay these eggs, but they don't hatch unless they get enough like salt going on. So that's never going to happen in my aquarium. So you just have all these eggs that evolution is made to withstand like a nuke. Those things are just like, I don't know, somehow they're
harder to get off than green spot algae sometimes.
They're made to withstand the test of time. The good news is they don't always, like, let's say you got 500,000 spots of green spot algae on your 800-gallon aquarium. They would eat that, and then they lay 500,000 white eggs. But maybe only 100,000 of them was on the glass. The other 400,000 could be on rocks and wood and stuff like that. So it's
I suppose
less,
so. I don't like,
but still bad.
I like Narrate snails. I think that they're awesome. I do not like the trade-off of the white spots of snail eggs in certain aquariums.
I'm on the opposite end. Like, I'll make that trade every day. If I can choose between green spot and white spots, I prefer the white spots.
Well, I look at it this way, even in the sense of photography.
Yeah.
I can make the green spots blend into a good picture. but I can't make the bright white spots of the Nerites go away.
I don't know. I feel like I'm
without a ton of
skewed.
Photoshop.
I feel like I'm skewed because I lust after Narrate snails so often because all the fish that I tend to keep in big display aquariums eat snails. So I'm always keeping puffers or loaches, and they both destroy snails, and then I'm left with no answer. Well, my answer was, like in that aquarium, I was getting wicked bad green spot algae in the 800 gallon.
Mm-hmm.
And with over 100 clown loaches, they will eat snails for sure.
Yeah.
So my answer was a $250 magnet, which has worked out really well, by the way.
Yeah.
But it sucks. Like I would much rather be like, oh, I just have Narrate snails, and then I got a few white spots, But I mean, and plus, I do like to take care of it naturally. I do get a sense of enjoyment when I'm like, yeah, that thing's eating that thing that I don't like.
Yeah.
And yeah, it might make something else that I don't really like, but in a brackish aquarium, like in I think Mike Helwig's book, what is it, Live Fish Food or something like that. My viewers have heard me talk about this before, but they describe an aquarium that's like the holy trinity or whatever, and basically it's a brackish water aquarium with mollies in it and Narrate snails, because then the Narrate snails, the eggs hatch, right? And Narrate snail egg baby thingies come out in a larval state and they float on top of the water, and then baby mollies just chomp them down. So it's kind of this perfect, like...
Is that good, though?
It is if the eggs hatch and you don't have white eggs around anymore. And then
But if you really
spot.
like the Narite snails, why do you want the baby Nerites to get eaten?
Well, I'm just saying, if you're a guy like yourself who hates the white eggs, you could keep Narrate snails in brackish water, and then you wouldn't have
But
the white
I don't want to
eggs.
keep mollies.
Well, you don't have to keep mollies. It's just one of those things that, like, they also would love the brackish water.
From your example, I have to keep mollies to eat the
In that
Nerite
example,
snail babies.
How about archers?
I would rather just keep
How
a
about
brackish
archers?
tank and hatch Nerites.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. dude.
Although I will give people a quick tip on the Narite snail eggs. In a freshwater tank, typically where the Nerites want to lay their eggs is on a piece of driftwood. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is that typically their plan, the snail's master plan, is that piece of driftwood will float down the river eventually, right? Mm-hmm. Down the river is the ocean. So they're hoping that piece of driftwood will go down, 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 and head on down to the
Salty
ocean.
Town. Head to Salty
And then
Town.
once it gets to Salty Town, then they know that the eggs have... essentially the eggs know that they've arrived in an area where they can hatch and survive. So then they'll hatch, then they'll survive. So the recommendation I've got for people is to go put in a piece of driftwood every once in a while into your tank. Normally the new introduction of a piece of driftwood will kind of trigger the snails to go over there and lay their eggs on it. Take that piece of driftwood out. Now, if you have a tank set up that's like high brackish or full salt, you can throw that piece of driftwood in there, then they'll hatch in a different tank.
Not all of us are crazy like you. I'm freshwater only, bro.
Hey, bro. Get crazy, then. I don't know. But that's one way that you can do it.
Yeah.
I had minimal success.
I think...
I mean, not minimal. I guess I had medium success.
I think you
And it was
should
helpful.
set up that I don't even remember what size, but that cube tank that you don't think you've set it up yet, right?
It's set up. It's not running yet, though.
You should make it brackishy in some range and only raise a monoshrimp and Narrate snails. That would be wicked cool. Not to look at.
Maybe. I got to put the killies in there. That's where the killies are going.
Oh. I want someone to live out my dreams. Yeah. Dang it. But let's talk about other cleaners, like
Clown Plecos.
clown plecos. Yes, that's where I was going.
Clown Plecos are mine. You were asking me earlier if I had a fish that was a go-to.
Yeah.
Clown Plecos have been my go-to.
All right.
I like those little guys. Even though they are heavy wood eaters,
They eat meat. They eat wood. They I'm not convinced. I mean, they might poop more than they eat. You know,
They might somehow magically poop more than they eat.
Yeah.
But clown plecos have been they've been my favorite little guy. And although you and I were talking about it the other day, with the L134s. What's the street name?
oh, street name, code name, leopard frogus.
Leopard frog.
Yeah.
Leopard frog plecos. I'm thinking I might have to order in some of those someday.
So those could be your new favorite buddies.
Keep walking by them.
Yeah.
Like, oh man. But you mentioned the bristlenose earlier, and I got the bristlenose, and Vicky, my lady, has the bristlenose fever.
I wonder if it's
the fever.
Yeah. I
Right,
wonder if it's something with the ladies, because my wife, out of all the fish I have ever owned, bristlenose are where it's at for her.
That's the one.
And it's for her, the true love affair started the first time they had babies.
Oh yeah.
Once the babies are like, they're the cutest things on the planet. Oh my God, they're having more babies, and they do it all the time. And somehow she really connects with that of just like, oh man, look at that, they got more babies, so cool, I love it, you know. And has Vicky had that experience? Like, have yours bred or anything yet, or
yes,
is it just
they have bred?
And did that addiction start when the babies happened, or like the day you bought a bristlenose? Was she just like, oh no, this is my fish, I love it?
For her, she got some bristlenose, and I can't remember where that was, when or why or how that came to be.
Yeah.
But she got those, and then she had them for a while, and she really liked them, and she was like, "Yeah, they're doing great." And then there was eggs, right?
Yeah, and then probably
Then the eggs were being
moment.
protected.
What?
Then there was babies,
Yeah.
and
Is that the first fish she ever bred?
it's not I don't think it's the first fish. I think she accidentally, well, not accidentally, but the endlers were the first ones that she bred.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the endlers,
Yeah,
they're
they
that's
make
what
more.
they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as I think endlers were the first ones that she bred, but once the bristlenose had bred, it was kind of game over after that.
Yeah.
'Cause then it's like, I got these babies, I gotta take care of them, and she there were some die off, but I was certainly not a high percentage. But there was one that died, one of those babies that died, and then
Yeah.
mother instincts started kicking in. It's like,
Yeah.
we gotta do everything we can to protect these babies.
That's right.
Which is good. But I don't know that it was the baby time that she fell in love with them. I think it's more their characteristic of like how they kind of move around, because they do the and they don't hide a whole ton.
Yeah.
I mean, they do
definitely more
hide out. They're
outgoing
not
than
like
other plecos.
They don't swim right at your face or something, but they don't hide out as much as other plecos.
I find everyone loves them until they watch them fight. And
Oh.
then they're like, oh, that's brutal. You mean those gill rakers just pierce the stomach of the other ones? Like, uh-huh. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's blood. Those are wounds. Like two males going at it. Need a
Mm-hmm.
big tank. Because they can be really brutal to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the nicest thing, but I do love them. I mean, I myself am a huge fan of them. I'm just interested to see, like, oh, what makes you love pizza? I love pizza. Like, it just seems weird when other people are like, no, that's like, I love that too. And then you like that, and you like that. Out of all the fish, like, why is it we all keep coming back to that? Not that it's the only fish I like, but it's a sign that maybe you'll like it too. Even though Nancy Griffith in the chat, she's not down with the bristlenose, but that's cool. You don't have to be. There's lots of plecos in the sea to play with. Someone's asking how you get rid of black beard algae. Another kind of cleanup problem.
Oh,
You got a favorite? Well, because there's chemical methods, there's manual removal.
blackbeard algae. I go chemical all the time.
Yeah, what you got if you're doing fish though? Because we're talking about cleanup fish.
Glahudahide.
That's not a fish.
Well, The only thing that I know that eats blackbeard algae is a flagfish.
That's one of them. Yeah,
And there might be something else. Like
I know of other ones.
Siamese algae eaters are like, they're like whispered to eat it.
They'll eat it.
Siamese algae eaters eat it.
They eat it, but they only want to eat it when they're really hungry and before they're mature. Once they're mature, they need to take in a lot of protein so they can reproduce.
Yeah. Once they're mature, they don't care anymore. And if you think that the bristlenose are violent to each other,
can be.
Prepare yourself for the Thunderdome that is the Siamese algae eater. As long, I mean, especially, and well, I think one of the big issues with the Siamese algae eater is that they get confused with the flying fox.
Yeah,
and then people get the wrong fish.
That happens quite a bit. But a true Siamese algae eater in juvenile form, made to be really hungry, does eat blackbeard algae.
Right, and that doesn't seem very optimal to me because I like to feed my fish.
Well, you have a heart.
Starve, you fools!
Yeah.
Starve!
But,
do my bidding.
Extreme situations require extreme solutions.
I don't think blackbeard algae constitutes an extreme situation.
The one I'm dying to try, and it hasn't lined up yet. We keep ordering them in, and then I wait for them to go through quarantine, and then they come out of quarantine. They sell wicked fast because I keep talking about them. But from people that I respect their knowledge level, because I had hours and hours of long conversations during my travels. They swear, the state of I'm trying to remember where I was. I feel like it was Michigan. The state of Michigan is the epicenter of pandagoras being the bee's knees when it comes to blackbeard algae.
Yeah, pandagoras.
Because I was talking to one guy, he's like, oh yeah, they're munching it down. Look right over here. And he had them in a bunch of tanks. And I was like, wow, yeah, they're really munching it down. And then I went to we were store hopping while I was giving a talk. And then I went to the next place and I was like, yeah, you ever, the guy over there was saying pandagoras really love blackbeard algae. And I was like, I never heard that before. And they're like, yeah, of course it does. Who, you don't know that? And I'm like, I've never heard that. I'm kind of on the internet and I've never heard that ever before. And yet
Michigan doesn't have the internet.
Yeah, maybe they are the internet. I don't know what the deal is going on over there, but it was written into everyone's deed of their house that it was just a well-known fact. And I was the only guy in the state of Michigan that didn't know this. Right. And so I've been dying to try it ever since, so I can be like, yeah, Michigan, they're on it. Which they have a giant. They've got 400 clubs in the state of Michigan alone. It's there's way too many fish nerds.
You have a big
convention. Yeah. So
when is that? What's the date on that?
I think it's May 4, 5, and 6.
Oh,
I think I'm pretty sure, but don't buy plane tickets without looking that up. That would be really dumb. I recommend making sure that was the correct date.
Double check it.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure.
But I just bought plane tickets just now.
Dang, I told you to look first.
The voice activation thing is going off over here.
Buying tickets.
Buy tickets, meow.
But because they have
Alexa,
because they have a big club scene all around there, they're putting on the American Library Association convention. That rolls right off the tongue, by the way.
It's just right off.
Yeah. So they've got funds and the people willing to put something like that on. So I'm going to be there. I get to be the banquet speaker and give another talk. So I'll be there. Who knows who I'll be able to drag with me? It might be one of those things if I fly, it's one thing. If I drive, maybe Jimmy and Joel can share a bunk, you just cling together for warmth. We'll drive in the van.
To sleep outside on the ground.
Yeah, All right. So, it might be one of those things because I do want to make it be a big thing. But, so yeah, Michigan, it's just kind of a happening spot.
We could drive out there.
I've done it once.
It's, let me think here.
No, that's not true. I flew out there that time. But it's I basically drove there when I went to
It's Chicago. Only 2,400 miles.
Me and Jimmy bust that out actually pretty quick.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems...
When you go 70 miles an hour, it goes by fast.
Yeah, I think, we probably average 65.
I go 90,000 miles an hour, so it's actually pretty quick.
Yeah, that doesn't take long at all. But when you have 2 people driving that will drive for long periods of time, we were actually way ahead of schedule. Because whenever you talk to anyone, they're like, oh, man, 2,400 miles? You crazy. You crazy.
Right.
And so I was so scared because I'd never done cross-country things. And then I go to do it, and I'm like, I don't, like, that was easier than an 8-hour live stream.
Yeah.
I do that kind of all the time.
6 hours of driving, the other person does 6 hours of driving. You've gone pretty far.
Yeah, you drive 12 miles, and then with us having bunks in the back, like someone's literally kicking back on the phone.
Yeah.
Just, like, oh, yeah, and
You just
the
road
hardest
warrior,
part
man.
is pulling over to eat. Like, oh, let's find somewhere to eat. You want to eat here? No. What sounds good? No.
No.
Yeah, you want burgers again?
You just
no.
go forage in the wild. That's the real trick.
Yeah. But then you get things like, oh, it's Wisconsin. We got to get some of that Wisconsin cheese. You know what I mean, man? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon you're like, oh, we already drove through Wisconsin.
We were eating a lot of cheese when we were out there.
Yeah. Because
Like,
we're at all the gas stations.
oh, hey, there's like a spot here that has a big giant sign that says cheese curds on it.
Yeah.
We have to go in there.
We were all
check that out.
disappointed. And then it turns out every state around Wisconsin also sells the cheese, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, no, I'll never get it. And then it's like, oh, actually, it's just everywhere over
It's
here.
not geographically like isolated to Wisconsin.
It's not illegal to bring cheese over the border.
Across the border.
Yeah.
Let's see.
But-
Somebody said except the speed limit is 60 miles per hour in Washington. No, it's not. Only in certain areas.
Yeah.
It's
It's
70.
definitely, I would say,
It's 75 is the top in some.
yeah. I feel like it's
Areas.
50-50. Like 50% is 60 and 50% is 70.
Mm-hmm.
It's only around
You hit
the
Oregon,
super
then you
duper trafficy
hit
areas.
Oregon
they
and
slow it down a
Idaho.
bit.
Hit Oregon and Idaho, and you get to some 80-mile-an-hour zones.
That was a little. I was out of my comfort zone in that.
Really?
Just because I've lived in Washington my whole life.
Like, I'm
so it
gonna
was a
pass
little
all
like,
you
ooh.
fools in 80-mile-an-hour speed.
So what was
How fast does
horrible-
this car go? That's really what I'm saying. I mean, not really. You
So
know
what
I mean.
was horrible
I follow the speed limit. That's
in Washington, and maybe I'm just the only guy that doesn't know this, but in Washington, the left lane isn't really for passing only because we usually have like 4 or 5 lanes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things like you get over there and you're driving like you in Washington.
the left
most
lane
people
in Washington State
is legally for passing only.
is for passing. It is not. It's not considered a through lane.
Yes, but if we're going by the law, technically every single person should be in the right-hand lane
No.
only if they're passing. They would get out of that lane.
No.
Yes.
Well, if it's a 2-lane highway, yes.
Even if,
If it's a 3-lane highway, you should be in. If it's a 3-lane highway, the left lane's for passing, the center lane is for driving, the right lane is for exiting and entering the roadway. If it's a 4-lane highway, there's just 2 middle lanes now for through driving. So the bigger the highway gets, the outer lanes still stay the same. There'd just be more through lanes, right? So if you're like down in LA and there's like 7 lanes, there's just more through lanes where you're supposed to just be driving.
So, okay, here's my moral question I ask. Let's say the speed limit's 70, and you're doing 74
Where?
on the freeway somewhere. I don't know.
Which lane?
Well, I'm getting to that.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say you're doing it in the left lane,
Okay.
but you're not like actively passing someone. Let's say everyone in the lane to the right of you is doing 70, and every X amount of, let's just say for every 60 seconds you're passing another person, or even 3 minutes. Like you're clearly driving faster than the people in the next lane over.
Then I can answer this already. I already know what you're
But
saying.
I'm not done telling my story.
Okay.
I like to tell stories.
All right.
Now, who is more morally corrupt? The person driving 74 and not getting back over into that lane, but also not letting the person behind them go past them because they want to do 173
Okay. I can answer this question.
versus, yeah, okay.
I can answer this question because it's a multiple staged question.
and
'Cause
you're saying to be morally
'cause
and
let
legally.
me answer your first part.
Yeah.
Your first part, was if you're continuing to drive in the left lane and doing like 75 or 74,
Yes,
like you said, and everyone over here is doing
within
70,
the margin of error of not getting a
yes,
ticket.
you would stay in the left lane because you're still passing, even though you're even though you're only passing somebody like every 1 minute or something.
Yeah.
Like you're
traveling
coming
faster
up,
than
you're
the
coming
other
up
lane.
on people and
Yes.
and overtaking them. You're
Uh-huh.
but it may be a minute, it may be whatever.
Yeah.
Technically, you're correct. That's what you should. That's the lane that you should be in.
Okay.
Now, if there's somebody else that's going 85 in the left lane and they come up behind you,
Yeah.
it is your obligation to move over and allow them to pass legally. That is your job. If someone is overtaking you in traffic, it is your job to get over into the right-hand lane and allow them to pass.
And now I
Now,
realize
the main reason for that is a multiple faceted reason.
Okay.
The first reason is road rage.
Yes.
Okay. You can encounter a road rage situation where something crazy could happen.
Yes.
Let's avoid that. The second reason is a safety issue, and the fact that the faster a car is going, the more lane changes they have to make, the more dangerous a situation it goes for essentially bystanders, right?
Yes.
So if you're going slower than them, it's your obligation to move over because technically it will be safer for you to move over because you're going slower, right?
I see.
Now,
Safer
third
for
reason-
me than the person going faster.
the third reason
Yes.
for the person going faster, you driving your vehicle can't necessarily make the assessment of who is going faster from behind you, right? You go
Sure.
like, oh, it's just some jerk that's driving fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally don't know if that's the undercover police officer who's trying to save someone's
Fair.
life or
Okay.
whatever. Like, you don't know. You can't make that assumption that, like,
Sure.
I know he's just being a jerk, so I'm just going to stay over here and be in his way. But ultimately you create a more unsafe situation if you were to block them, basically.
Yeah.
And you without anything that you would know about. Now, morally, you may be correct morally, but it is definitely not your obligation to enforce the morality of a law. That's the job of the state patrol and or local police enforcement, whoever is in charge of that. So the moral issue, it's their job to handle. So
Because there were
you
definitely
morally might be like in the right, like, here's my spot, this is where I'm driving. But considering there's almost 60,000 deaths on our highways every year, it's more of a life and death kind of safety issue than most people, I think, recognize, honestly.
Because Jimmy, growing up, or at least being in Ohio, didn't grow up there, but he was like on the other camper. He would like stay in the right-hand lane all the time, and ended up driving way below the speed limit. So he was on the opposite end of the spectrum I was, where I'd be like, no, I'm going to hang out in the left lane because everyone's doing 50, speed limit's 60, and then the problem is there were many, many, many times when there was like, I'm not going to call it bumper to bumper, but there was no way to safely get over in the right-hand lane, and yet there'd be a guy that was just losing his mind because he wanted to do 170, and I'm only doing, a little bit above the speed limit. But at the same time, it's not a good situation for me to get over either. Like, that would be
Right.
so. Like, Jimmy, like, dude, you gotta get over. Like, you gotta get over. I'm like, dude, no. Like, it's more dangerous for me to get over. The guy behind me needs to not be reckless. That's the problem at this point. And that, we ran into that a lot, especially like in Chicago and things like that, where like there's no getting over without just causing a big hubbub for everyone involved,
Right.
so that one guy can get by.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes there are crazy people, and there's not much that you can do.
But they could be
It's just
undercover cops.
maintain your composure and not go flying into other lanes and stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, there are laws.
I'm not even sure how we
in
got
place.
here now.
What's that?
I'm not even sure. Oh, because we're going to cross country trip.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
how do we even get to here where I'm talking about how bad of a driver apparently I am and situations of morality on the road?
Right. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, but it has come up a lot in our area here in Washington. The traffic laws, all that kind of stuff, has definitely come up a lot, especially with. I was actually talking about this the other day because of the tragic train accident that happened. That's actually really close to my house. That where that overpass is, I see that overpass like It's
You eat
south
lunch
of my
under it
house.
at least once a week.
What's that?
You eat lunch under that underpass at least once a week.
No, but like I get my hair cut. Like my barber's right near that overpass. So, that's where I get my hair cut and stuff. So I definitely go down there quite a bit. But it's been on our minds a lot in Washington because with the train accident, coupled with the fact that they're taxing us $50 billion for a new train system that they're going to put in. So it's been on our minds a lot. So it's easy for us to take that tangent because we're like, traffic sucks so bad, and what are we doing? So
through a lot of the country, like not country roads, but I'm saying like the country as a whole, driving from West Coast to East Coast, there were a lot of states from like, oh man, driving is kind of awesome here.
Right.
Like wow.
There's so many spots.
I don't
want
to kill myself every 40 minutes.
Yeah, there's so many spots where you're like in let's say Wyoming. You know what I mean? Like driving through Wyoming is like, oh hey, we all just get to drive on the road. Like this totally makes sense.
So Chicken Joe brings up something that triggers me on the road. In that same scenario, let's say I'm doing 74 in a 70, and then there's a semi-truck that wants to run me over in the left-hand lane because he wants to do 85. Meanwhile, on the sign, it says, like, trucks can only go 10 miles slower than even I'm going.
Right.
Like, that is even worse. Now I'm just like, this guy is just out of control.
Here's the ordeal. Yes, that guy might be out of control. What people need to focus on when they're driving on the road is their own safety, okay? And maybe I didn't elaborate enough on it in regards to the fact that, when I say 60,000 people a year die on our roads, that's over 1,000 people per state, every year die. Every year. And that is way down from what it used to be, right? Because of laws, seatbelts, intoxicated driving laws, all these kinds of things. It's way down. But that's still a lot of people every year.
Right.
Because driving is incredibly dangerous. You're in a hunk of metal that is hurling itself down the road, that you're assuming that every safety precaution that has been put into place, handled by somebody else, is going to be good, right?
Yep.
And so the best advice I can give anybody from a dude like me who's spent a lot of time driving around and seen a ton of accidents.
Yep.
We talked about me being a street sweeper a while ago.
Yeah.
And I've seen a ton of accidents and been a first responder on a lot of accidents because I just happen to be out there on the highway.
Sure.
Going 3 miles an hour on the side of the road and like, oh, look at this guy. Oh, look at that guy. It's on fire and he's dead now.
Yeah.
And so the thing that I would always remind people is think of your own safety. Think of your self-preservation. Don't think about how somebody else is being a jerk, how somebody else is doing something wrong. Think about preserving your own safety.
That's why I do it.
That's the main concern.
This seems counterintuitive, but that is the exact reason, because I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, the guy that races up behind me,
right,
and then I get over, he races up to the next person, and I watch more shenanigans happening. And
I understand that.
Plenty of times where I'm like, that right there was almost an accident, because that guy, a lot of times, they'll race up behind you, you get over, they race up to the next person, then they're going to cut to the next thing, and there's almost an accident right there. It is actually, I feel it is safer if they're stuck behind me than creating a pile up right in front of me.
It's actually statistically not safer. It's more dangerous to stop somebody who's trying to speed, because typically speaking, when the opportunity arrives, they will start passing on the right-hand side. Okay?
Yes.
Which we know is the blind spot in America.
Yep.
Right? Because we all drive in the left-hand side of the car.
Yes.
More accidents happen from people's blind spots because you can't see back there as well.
Right.
So there are more instances of accidents from people trying to block the guy who's trying to go fast than the other way around. So that's why I'm saying You want to think about your safety, your own safety. Maintaining your
I'm
own
making
safety
the
is what
case-
is going to keep everyone
I'm
safe.
making the case that that person being reckless behind me is safer than them being reckless in front of me.
No, because like I just said, when the opportunity arrives, they'll pass on the right, which is more dangerous.
Right, but I'm saying they're going to pass on the right either behind me or in front of me anyway. So it's not the difference between them not making a pass on the right. Because it's not like they get past me and they're like, oh, good. Now, because I'm typically doing the flow of traffic that everyone else is doing. So they literally just bump up 30 feet and they're in the same position they were. And now they're going to try to make the right-hand pass. And if that pileup happens in front of me, it is more dangerous to me in front of me than 10 feet behind me, to me personally, if we're focusing on my safety.
That's not how safety works. It's like I was talking about yesterday with boiling rocks for your aquarium.
Yes. I'm not...
Well,
I'm not,
the 90 other times I boiled the rocks, they didn't explode. But this time, they did. And now I'm blind.
I understand that it is a
Oh.
dangerous situation both ways.
Right. And
I
I'm
just-
saying that they've compiled the statistic that it is more safe for you to allow them to pass than it is for you to block them. Because they go, how many millions of people are driving around all the time? How many accidents happen? How many accident reports do we have? They get pretty detailed in their accident reports. Right?
I understand.
They compile all that data and go, okay, what's our recommendation so that there could be more safe people?
Sure.
Right? Their recommendation is to allow them to pass because statistically speaking, there are less accidents while treating it that way. So
All right.
that's why that recommendation is there. It's not because, man, the man's trying to tell me what to do. No, the man is trying to advise you what would be the safest thing to do. Because the man wants your tax money. The man wants you to keep living, keep giving them tax money. So that's really kind of one of those things that, like, that's the reason that stuff is there, is the preservation of more people. It may disagree with it.
No. So I 100% agree with that statement of preservation of more people. But if we're focusing on preservation of Cory, I'm not sure I agree.
That's the preservation of more people is the preservation of Cory.
I could believe less people might be hurt if they pass me. I could believe that.
Less
I am more likely
less
to
you
get hurt.
will be hurt.
I am convinced I am more likely to be hurt with an accident ahead of my vehicle than behind my vehicle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the part I'm
Oh,
arguing.
here we go. 12-year veteran police officer here. Move over, get their tag and a vehicle description, and call the police / report a reckless vehicle. There you go.
All right.
If something crazy, do that. Like I got in an accident like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I got in a hit and run. Right. I got plowed into by some guy or girl, whoever it was, doesn't matter who it was. I got plowed into somebody who was not paying attention, clearly. Then decided to run away in traffic. And there was really no way for me to track them down because of the situation I was in. I had pulled off to the side of the road to figure out what's going on. Some other people had pulled over, and I assumed that they were the one that hit me. But whoever it was that hit me got away, but luckily was called in by people. There was a lot of traffic around there, right? And so, like, that would be a perfect instance that it's like, you know, somebody could have gone vigilante and, like, run that guy off the road or something like that. But the best thing to do is just report it, call it in, see what's going on, you know, and everybody just maintain safety. That's the whole point. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But we want a road trip regardless.
Yes.
But don't be blocking the maniacs. I'm just saying. You just let them over. Just let them go.
I will be doing exponential amounts of research on this because my brain doesn't comprehend.
Here's the thing. Unexpected consequences is always a problem in life, right?
Yes.
Is that you go, well, I'm trying to preserve my own safety, right? Because I want the crash to be behind me instead of in front of me.
Exactly.
But the unexpected consequence might be somebody that crashed behind you is somebody that was really important to you.
Well, sure. That's there's always going to be the case. It could be like,
Right.
oh, my entire family's behind me. But if we're arguing the point of your own safety, Like I'm not saying that not getting over is the correct thing to do. But if you ask me the question, will you be more safe if an accident happens behind you than ahead of you? I firmly believe the odds of stuff spinning out of control and hitting my vehicle from 7 feet behind me versus 7 feet in front of me, I feel like is a greater risk to myself and the people in my car. I'm not saying that I was doing the correct thing, but that point is what I was trying to get across, is that the maniac's still a maniac after he passes me, essentially.
Right.
So if we're really talking about self-preservation, I'm not sure letting him by preserves myself and the people in my vehicle. It just means that guy might not crash till tomorrow or whatever. But he also might not crash into me at all behind me either. So that's where I got to do a lot more research and read. Just like
what I'm saying is that he might end up crashing into you if you're blocking them, because typically somebody that's speeding is going to follow too close, just like the person who crashed into me 3 weeks ago.
Yes,
you're following too close.
Yes.
Didn't have time to stop, and that's
I will
a big part of the reason.
More research to see if it has been proven that, like, if they follow people reckless driving enough that it's that more skewed. Letting him pass, like, is it 51% accident if you let him pass versus 49% if you keep them behind, or something like that? I'm just saying I will be doing extracurricular reading on that myself.
I encourage it.
Yeah, exactly. Education
it.
is key. Education is key. I will, because my brain, and I'm being truthful here, my brain doesn't wrap around why yet. And I'm a guy that if I don't understand why, it doesn't work for me. I have to go like, oh, I get it. Because of these circumstances, this is now the reason. But so far, the arguments presented have not convinced my brain. I need to read, like, oh, yeah, there's a 47-page report that, Wisconsin DOT put out after studying for 4 years. And it's like, oh, well, in this situation with rain, it does this. With snow, it does this. On a dry day, it does this. And because it's 3% better, then... Right. I can, I can handle it. So
yeah, well, either way.
Yeah.
Either way, you can be wrong.
For sure, I could be wrong. I didn't say it was. I don't think I've ever said I'm not wrong. I just said I don't agree.
Yeah. Well, those
are different. Those are different things.
Opinions and facts are two different things, right?
Yeah.
Feelings and facts.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I never said this is factual or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Well, no, we'll definitely look into it. We'll look into
you don't
it.
Need to. I'm going to. I wrap my brain around it.
Yeah. Well, I'll show you where to read.
All right.
Like
pull out your handbook.
The federal DOT handbook. Yes.
All right. So let's see here. We've got a bunch of people complaining we're not talking about fish. In my opinion, I don't really care about that because we spent 2 hours on a show. We're talking about fish. We will talk about more fish, but talking about other things like driving to the fish convention, in my opinion, is in the wheelhouse.
Sometimes we got to navigate how to get to the fish convention.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. All I know...
I'd be trying to follow Cory in traffic, and he's driving too fast. And then I get lost. Then I get scared. Then I start crying.
Mm-hmm.
And who wants me to be crying?
No one wants you to be crying. But... This show, I mean, I can just rename it. It's real easy. We can just change the channel name to the show things.
We can't call it Mr. Show. That already got taken.
Well, we won't call it Mr. Show. We'll call it Mrs. Show or something.
Maybe we could call Bob Odenkirk and ask him if we could call it Mr. Show.
Yeah. But the reality is, we're going to talk about a lot of things, lots of times, and let's say out of 100 topics we talk about, 48 of them will be fish. So, like, for instance, so far we've talked about traffic, and we've talked about cleaning fish. I envision we'll probably talk about cleaning fish some more, but I'm not necessarily, adhered to that. Like, we could just go and talk about plants, or we could talk about anything right now. We could talk about the Super Chats, which is, from Caroline Epler. I got to scroll way up because it's way back in there now. Way back machine. In fact, I'm going to pull up the live chat thingy. There's a thingy for that. Wait for it. Thingy's happening. She gave us a $25 super chat. Thanks for the great information and working so hard to promote the hobby. Thank you very much, Caroline. So yeah, that is
Caroline Epler coming in big with a $25.
Yeah. She did that again.
We got
I think on Tuesday.
We got 2 big super chats today.
And then we got Jules the Walker with keep up the good work, guys.
Jules with the $10.
Yeah.
Those are both. I mean, I guess they're not the biggest I've ever seen.
So yeah, when it comes to,
It's not fair, though, because the biggest I've ever seen was from that guy who's sitting right over there. And then it's just like a pat on the back time for Taco Hat Man over there.
No, I'm not fishing for that. I got to do it anonymously from now on. Like, I just want to be the anonymous guy.
No, I was just saying that, like, the biggest one I ever seen was literally from you. So I can't even tell you the story about it. Hey, man. Hey, Cory, did you know what Cory did this one Cory time with Cory?
Yeah.
Well, on the internet, Cory, hey, man, were you there? Then you'd be like, I was there. And I'd be like, I got all excited to tell you all about it, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I think yesterday I was trying to tell a story to Vicky about what happened to me at the bank, and she just...
I'm surprised you actually went to a bank. I do everything in my life to avoid going to a bank.
I hate going to the bank. I hate going to the bank, so I end up going to both banks in one day because I hate going to the bank.
That's like going to the DMV and the dentist.
Well, I think you know how it is that sometimes you have to go to the bank in order to appease the...
bank gods?
The guys that wear the funny little hats and wigs, the white powdered wig guys.
Yeah.
Those guys, the white powdered wig guys, need to go by the bank every once in a while.
You gotta give them monies.
Yeah, so I had to do that. But I was like trying to tell Vicky my story. And you didn't even want to hear the story of me telling the story to Vicky.
Well, you let it... It's not a good story when you lead it up with the person I was trying to tell a story to really wasn't enjoying it.
I was trying to tell this awesome story that was so not
and
awesome.
And they were so bored. So I'm going to tell you about telling that person the story where they were bored.
Hey, you had to be there.
Yeah.
Okay. You had to be there at it.
Well, no, let's hear it now because I know this.
I can't tell you now. There's too much lead in.
All right, so just... know this, that everyone that's like, we wanted to hear that story is not my fault because I'm encouraging him. So blame it on him. But I do want to talk about, we talked about freshwater cleaning fish. I do want to talk about saltwater stuff because I know you keep them salty things, and I'm not currently keeping those salty things, but I know a thing or two about salty things.
My conchs are my favorite. And they're from space.
Those things are my favorite thing that you own. Out of everything in your fish room, anytime you should show more conchs. That's... I almost set up a saltwater tank because those conchs do look like aliens.
They are space aliens.
And I didn't know they were scavengers. Like, that's what lures me to saltwater is like, wait, you can just have like for some reason, I'm not super like snails in freshwater. I'm like, yeah, cool. Snails are cool. But a hermit crab in saltwater, mind-blowingly cool to me. And I don't know if it's because I haven't kept a billion of them in my life, or if they're just mind-blowingly cool because they have legs and snails don't.
It feels like...
they're mind-blowingly cool.
It feels like the ocean is more evolved than the ecosystems in freshwater. You know?
Yeah.
Whether I'm right or wrong about that is irrelevant because it's just a feeling,
Yeah.
It's one of the...
saltwater.
It's one of those strange things that, like... people ask me, like, why a skimmer works, right? Like, why does a skimmer work? And I always give them the example.
Gravity of saltwater is different.
Yes. Thanks for interrupting me. I had a cool story to tell you. But no, what flotsam and jetsam is on the beach? So you know that frothy, stinky nonsense that's going on the beach? That's called flotsam and jetsam.
Jetsam sounds fine, but flotsam, that's not good.
It's poop.
Ooh, you seen the flotsam this morning?
It's poop, bro.
Yeah.
If you want to know.
Yeah.
So when the tide comes in and out, what actually ends up happening is that protein builds up like a foam due to water tension and the salt content in the water.
Yeah.
All those proteins and stuff get built up on the beach, right? They end up getting deposited on the beach, and it's a pretty extensive system, but that's a real simplification of it. Now, the deposits on the beach, why that's kind of important, is that there's all these cool critters on the beach that do a ton of cleaning for the ocean, like
hermit crabs?
Hermit crabs, right? Which hermit crabs are something that you could probably just watch for
They're always
2-3 hours because they're always doing something goofy. They're like,
yeah, and I don't feel like snails do that. I feel like they do it every once in a while.
snails just kind of keep going.
Like I love a snail when it's like surfing the water tension on the surface, and you're like, look at that thing, it's magical. But I feel like hermit crabs are always. And what's the
Hermits are always doing something. They're very rarely are they ever just sitting.
Yeah.
Like they're almost always doing something. They're changing their shells all the time.
So that's the thing. I fell in love with one named Tinkerbell that was in a store in Arlington. And that thing, and I don't know if they all get this big or a certain type or whatever, but that hermit crab, no joke, was like this. The shell was massive. And the guy said like, oh yeah, I had that forever and a day. I kind of want one of those. Like that to me, that's like getting a flower horn. I want a tangle like, yeah, you see that? That's my lobster, except I want it to be,
You know who's local?
giant hermit crab.
You know who's local that has one is Natalia.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh, she's a person named Natalia.
All right.
Washington.
And she has a giant hermit
She's
crab?
pretty involved in the Western Washington, like, forums and stuff like that. And she's got one that's, like, that big.
That seems super cool to me. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm just like, that. Yeah, clearly I have an attraction to hermit crabs.
They're cool.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always doing something. They don't really know how to...
What are they good at breaking down in the saltwater?
pretty much everything.
Like, will they go after hair algae and stuff?
Leftover food. They'll grab algae from time to time. I mean, they look for protein more than anything. You know, that's kind of their favorite thing.
Yeah, okay.
But they'll just pick at stuff just sort of all day long, just grazing along. And they do great work, and they're pretty affordable. So even if you were somebody that was just like, hey, I've got a little 20-gallon saltwater aquarium that's kind of a self-contained unit, and I want to add something to it. I mean, you could throw like 30 of them in there.
That's
and
what
just
I
be
fall.
Like,
I've
just got
down,
hermit crabs and an engineer goby, and that's all that's in my tank.
When I fall down the saltwater hole and I'm looking up stuff online, I'm like, I could buy look at this package. It comes with like 8 different hermit crabs, and they all look cool. And that thing's only $60 to my door, you know. And it's like I'm always this close. Like I could do that. I own aquariums. I could put salt in them, and I could have these critters. But I don't know, yeah. And people hear me talk about, I'm always interested in like the pods, you know, and that kind of stuff. Somehow I'm not attracted to fish because I feel like, if we're doing fish, there's freshwater fish, but there's not really nearly the pod game and the like hermit crab and emerald crab and conchs and all these weird things that the saltwater has.
Conchs are great.
They only have one eye, right? Is that what I've ever
that?
seen? Do they only have that one crazy eye, or is it just they're really close together?
They have 2, but they like articulate.
Yeah.
So they're like, one's over here looking this way, and
if
the
you guys
other
have never
one's
seen
like...
a conch, look one up right now. They are alien-like.
And then they have this like little elephant trunk kind of snout thing that they eat with and pull themselves around.
How big are yours up to? Didn't you say they get kind of big?
Mine are like this big right now.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you get them in the wild, you can find them in the wild. They're like this big.
Whoa.
You know those big shells that they go like on the beach?
How's that go?
I did it. I just did it. You know, they have it like in Hawaii.
Yeah.
That's a conch shell, is what that is.
Okay.
So those big shells that you were in Hawaii.
Do
you
they
see some
no,
some
I
big
didn't
shells?
See any of the big shells.
Like in a store or something, you'll see them in there. Yeah, those are conch shells.
Do they grow that shell, or is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
They grow their
it's like
own
a
shell.
snail where it's
They're like a snail. They're like a snail crab space alien hybrid. I don't understand.
Yeah. Sometimes they fly.
The evolution of them makes no sense to me. I don't know. I look at it and I'm like, that is the stupidest way that you could evolve. And but who am I to know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
You know, but they're definitely entertaining. They're difficult to watch like in a non-time lapse form though, because they do kind of just move around pretty slowly.
Yeah.
And but if you watch them in a time lapse, you're like, what are these weirdos doing? Because they just have a longer day. You know, they just have a longer sense of time than the rest of us.
What else is there in saltwater? Isn't it like, is it the sea cucumbers that will eat like the bristle?
There's lots
of
snails, Australia snails, turbo snails.
Yeah.
Narrates can just live in full salt. There's a ton of snails and stuff like that. There's a lot of fish that do a lot of cleaning.
Do urchins clean?
Urchins can be detrimental because sometimes they'll eat coral and stuff like that. So soft tissue corals and
I
things.
do know they could eat some of the corals,
but yeah, they are cleaners.
Okay.
I mean, almost everything in the ocean that isn't like in some kind of streamlined form, like think of a bluefin tuna, right, or a shark. You know how they're in like
because they're adapted to be predators as opposed to.
So everything else you see is essentially a cleaner.
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense. I mean, freshwater
corals.
fish are
I mean,
that
corals.
way.
Corals are filter cleaners. So your corals are cleaning your water technically.
Yeah.
Almost everything in the ocean is some kind of cleaner. Unless they, like I said, if you kind of look at it and go, it's got a sleek design, it can move quickly. That's probably not a cleaner. That's probably a lion of the ocean.
This question just came to my mind. Why is it that saltwater has so many filter feeders? So, like, what is it like that? There's that giant whale that feeds on like plankton and stuff like that. And there's like probably clams and gooey ducks and you know all these things that do that, right? And then in freshwater, we have some clams, we have mussels, we have things like bamboo shrimp and vampire shrimp, all that kind of stuff. But I feel like there's tons and tons of like sediment and stuff like that in freshwater. I feel like freshwater is more stuff is actually in the water column.
I can explain that because we already talked about it.
All right.
There's less stuff in freshwater water column than in saltwater because of the salinity, the proteins and everything.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So
there's less food in the water column in freshwater as compared to saltwater. So like there's lots of filter feeders in the ocean because proteins will just float around because of all the salt. Right.
Right. So they're too
Whereas
heavy
if
in
you
freshwater.
if you look in freshwater, like all these bozos right over here,
way more bottom dwellers because it sinks.
lots more bottom dwellers because all the protein and stuff sinks to the bottom.
All right.
So I think that's the evolution. I might be wrong. I'm not a marine biologist.
You just play one on
What's
TV.
the freshwater version of a marine biologist? Jimmy, what's the freshwater version of a marine biologist? Nervous.
It's not ichthyologist because that's
It's
just
not
like
ichthyologist,
I'm trying to
no.
think of like
What's the freshwater version? Is it
Call it freshwater marine biologist.
freshwater marine biologist? I guess I don't know. Weird. All right.
I think
that's
I
weird.
think it's called a freshwater hobbyist.
But I would say, yeah. It's just like, do you have multiple tank syndrome? Is
Yes.
your electric bill through the roof?
Freshwater biologists are self-appointed.
Right. Yeah, it's just self-appointed. Like,
I read books nonstop about Plecostomus mouth-feeding issue. I've studied the rows of teeth, therefore I can identify. I can identify row 3.
It's just a biologist. That just seems so.
that seems so general.
Because if you just study, well, I was
if
say
you
if you
just
study
study-
bacteria, you're a microbiologist. But I'm trying to think of other things you could study and be like, you're a biologist.
Right. Trees.
Yeah. Why is a marine biologist? Why does it get its own?
Well, there's more
descriptor?
ocean than anything else on this planet.
Fair.
Fair to middling.
Yep. What about is there a space biologist? What if you're studying that kind of stuff
Yeah,
but in
it's
space?
called an astronomer.
I thought astronomers studied, like, for lack of a better term, space, but not like. Does an astronomer go like, "Hey, let's go take a sample from Mars and then put it under a microscope"? I thought they were just like, "Let's look at the
no,
relation
what's
of the
the-
planets and they move around and that kind of stuff."
Well, there's astrobiologists.
Okay, so maybe
Right.
see that. Okay, so how come they get a descriptor?
Well, because the freshwater's not big enough. It's just the ocean and space is bigger than
I'm
everything
not
else.
convinced.
I bet there is. There's got to be a freshwater.
Because there's and I was gonna say there's probably like a mushroom biologist because I know there's a term for that, but then I realized, well, fungi really that is like one of the biggest things on the planet.
That's one of the
I was
biggest
like,
things
Okay,
on the
that doesn't
planet.
work either.
Oh, that reminds me. We got to go on one of those. The University of Washington does free fungal hike tours
Okay,
that we go hike around and
we
like
got to do one of those.
we'll go shrooming.
All right.
Not like the psychedelic ones, but the we can go find ones to forage for. But we actually can go with the guys that have the
that are wicked
doctorate,
smart.
the doctorate guys from the UW, and it's free. And then we can get Jimmy to film it,
We can do
and
that.
we can just be like, there's a couple of real fun guy. You know?
Just do those puns for like 6 hours straight.
For 6 hours
Yeah.
nonstop, right?
Mm-hmm.
What were we on about? So one of the we're actually
Hold
talking
on.
about cleaners in
So
the reef,
this
right?
guy says it's called marine biologist specializing in freshwater. I wonder if that's like actually true.
Limnology is the science of inland water systems such as rivers. So maybe a limnologist? Limnologist might be
But is
right.
that the study of water flow
I think
and
that's the-
rivers themselves?
But
as
I think
opposed
that's
to
the
what lives in it?
waterways, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's waterways.
We'll get back to you. You know, you have to tune in to the next episode. We'll bring it with what a freshwater biologist. I want to know, like, if you're
Yeah.
a king freshwater biologist, what do they call you? Or if you're just like, yeah, the not marine biologist. Like the one guy
The
that made his
non-marine.
career out of not marine
Not
biology.
marine. I'm space water biologist.
Yeah. What if
Yeah.
you describe it like I'm not ocean guy.
Non-ocean
Yeah.
biologist.
Like maybe
I
it's
guess that just makes you
maybe
like a
it doesn't
biologist,
have a term
right?
because it's like a derogatory thing. Like you're admitting defeat. Like maybe like the marine biologist.
No,
group
because I
is
saw.
so-
No, because there was a marine biologist that focused it on the mammals in the marine biology, right?
Yeah.
Then there was a marine biology that focused. So these were top predator
Yeah.
biologists, right? They were trying to, and one was saying that the mammals were way better, and one was saying that
Oh, there's a geek
that
fight.
the fish were way
Yeah.
better. So it was a great documentary because they went around together.
Uh-huh.
And the guy that was like, "These great white sharks, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah
Yeah.
blah 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 blah," and the mammal guy was like, "Everything that you're talking about is eaten by the orca, so I don't even know what you're talking about because like everything that you're saying is so awesome and like terrifying and this and that. Like orcas just eat all of that on a regular basis, so clearly, you don't understand the factors of what we're trying to go through here, right?" And realistically, the guy had to just kind of go, "Yeah, you're right." By the end of it, but it was really entertaining. Got like to see a lot of cool stuff with like the sharks eating things, and
So the chat's got a good point. Maybe we should get whatever a freshwater biologist is into the show. Like we'll find a guy or girl. We'll find someone that is the freshwater biology person.
limnologist.
We'll call them in, and then we'll be like, "What is your title?" And then we'll know.
And then we'll know.
Maybe that's the move. Instead of us just looking it up, like we'll look it up, but we won't tell people, and then we'll just invite them in, and like we've got a big question.
Right.
What do you call yourself?
I mean, ultimately for our show, our goal is to just get some of those boys or girls. I was gonna say get some of them dudes in here.
Yeah.
I guess dudes is sort of male or female.
That's
That's kind of
whenever
general.
I say-
is dudes gender neutral now?
I don't
Right?
know.
I
But
think
to
so.
me, almost anything is synonymous. Like, you
Yeah.
know, dude, chick, guy, thing, person.
Well, that's the
It
goal
rolls
of our
off my
show,
head.
though.
I'm just like, yeah, we need to get someone in here.
Right, we're gonna get some of them, and then
Yeah.
we're gonna be able to ask them the questions that people were
Yeah.
wanting to ask them. Right?
And then we can ask them, like, what's the coolest predator? That
Don
type of
Pringle
stuff.
says, "Sheesh,
Sheesh.
sheesh."
Sheesh. Sheesh.
What a weird show.
Yeah. It is. Oh, it definitely. We're only getting weirder. That's the goal. Weirder, like better technology, but weirder.
Bradford Jackson says, "Call the salmon hatchery. I bet they have one on staff." You're right. And
That's who I was thinking about. In my mind, like the freshwater biologist was the people that are doing that.
yeah, we have lots of those guys
Yeah.
around here in Western
we
Washington.
could probably get like a gaggle of salmon biologists into this room.
Probably. Yeah.
I feel like, and I'm not downplaying their career, but I feel like they've always got like a bunch of time for like outreach.
yeah.
Like they're
I
all.
bet
I'm
they,
like-
they have to.
I'm almost like every time, like let's say you walk into McDonald's, you're like, of course there's a salmon presentation going on here.
Yes,
like
of
it just,
course.
I run into them, like I've probably run into like 12 in my life ever, and yet I've never run into like any other type of accidental presentation. But somehow there's
Right.
always like something going on like that. So, I know someone did have a question about rabbit snails in the freshwater aquarium.
Oh man, I love them rabbit snails,
They look
but I
super cool.
absolutely do not put them in my aquariums.
And what is your logicals behind that?
They eat plants, and I do not respect
I definitely have found
any snail that eats plants. Let me tell you something.
Well,
You get some snails, you
I
get
don't
some
agree with
slugs.
that statement.
You get some snails, you get some slugs in your garden.
Mm-hmm.
I'm freaking out.
That's
I
fine.
get some pond snails, like you and I talked about the other day, the bladder snails. You're like, what? You hate those? I know that you like them.
I love them,
which
and
is
they
great.
do not eat plants. They do not eat my plants. Because I would not like them if they did.
Right.
I'm just saying they don't eat my plants. I'm not saying they don't eat your plants, but I'm telling you,
My plants,
I've
twice
got-
as delicious.
I've got a lot of aquariums under my management and care
Mm-hmm.
that have pond snails and that I absolutely love because they're so good at cleaning debris and algae and things like that. And I myself, and I can attest to this, I myself have never seen what I consider to be a pond snail, pest snail type of thing eat healthy plants in my aquariums. Now, it could be that,
Right.
Cory, you're killing so many of the plants that they've got an eternal food source, which I don't believe to be true. But I myself, because I really, really, really enjoy raising them up to when they're like the size of a dime. Mm-hmm. I love those things. I think they're like the
You
coolest
love those
looking
things because
snail.
you want to feed them to Ladybird.
No, I don't.
Oh.
No. And you can ask my wife, I swear by this, all of them get the same name. They all become Grandpa Snail.
Oh, Grandpa.
Because they take forever to get like this big. They're super
I
cool.
mean, I appreciate where you're coming from.
I don't think you do, because you would love them if you did.
I appreciate where you're coming from. It's like, I look at them this way. Prairie dogs,
Yeah,
super awesome.
true.
Chipmunks, super awesome.
Yes, but you're not putting them in your planted tank.
Prairie dogs and chipmunks in my attic, not cool.
Yeah, Frank Dominguez lives there. He doesn't want to share.
Frank doesn't want to hang out with chipmunks, timber tigers, and prairie dogs and stuff all day.
I do
So
really
that's-
like them.
That's the way I look at it. That, like, I think realistically there are a lot of beneficial snails that I do propagate, like Malaysian trumpet snails, definitely help out with clearing algae
Yeah.
and stirring substrate and all that
Yep.
kind of stuff. And they do come out at night and clean things off of glass and plants and stuff like that. I do propagate ram's horn snails, like fully. I am constantly trying to
Like
breed more and
fully,
more.
man.
Full.
But with rabbit snails, I definitely have witnessed them go on a tear and chow plants down. I've also witnessed them be in my tanks and not touch them at all. And I haven't figured it out yet because I yeah
I know.
I can't tell you like a bristlenose. I can tell you like they love to chow down on sword plants, like the bigger leaf sword plants, not like micro sword, but the bigger leaf like that we know.
Yeah.
But like one, I can say this: I feel like rabbit snails aren't very good algae eaters.
No.
I've never really had that. I mean, they'll eat it, but they're not good at it.
They're going for.
They want meat. They
Yeah,
want
yeah.
food. Mm-hmm. But
I'm like,
as far as plants,
yeah.
I've definitely seen them murder some. And then I've been like, well, okay, I'll just keep them over here. I don't even care if they eat that. And then they don't eat it at all.
Uh-huh.
You should do the show from that angle.
This angle's good right here. right?
Although when we go to build, you're gonna, I got a kink in my neck.
Yeah. I just realized I was like over here.
You're doing the Jimmy Gangster
I was doing
lean.
the gangster lean, and
Yeah.
I didn't realize I was doing it until like, wait, what happened?
Google says freshwater biology, by the way.
Freshwater biology. Okay, so that does make more sense.
Yeah.
Freshwater biology. Okay.
I believe it.
Marine biologist just has such a ring to it, Like it
Maybe
just goes.
it's probably just because for every freshwater biologist, there's like 17,000 marine biologists or something. Like the number I feel like is way skewed.
Yeah.
Like I've yet to ever meet someone that's going to school to become
I think
a
the big,
freshwater marine biologist or
I-
freshwater biologist.
I think. Well, I don't know. I've met a lot of people. I think there's just more specifics on
Because
the
every
land.
day someone walks into my store and be like, "I'd like to work here. I'm in school to be a marine biologist." Never
Right.
once have I met someone they're like, "Oh no, I'm specializing in freshwater." Because I'd be like, "What? Yes, bring it. You're hired."
Yeah,
like
I
I'm
think
into
there's
that.
just more specialty into the freshwater though. Is that like?
Oh yeah, it's super narrow niche. I
Yeah.
think, in
Well,
terms of-
no. I think that each portion, there's a lot more
So you're saying like
on land.
There's a giant pool of like you study marine biology, the ocean,
right?
And then as freshwater, like oh, you study salmon and trout, or you study like tropical fish.
It's way more on land. I think it's way more specific, right? That you'd be like, oh well, I'm in, you know, like I'm
a freshwater biologist with a minor in Madagascar riverine.
But
fish.
you'd be like forestry, right?
Yeah.
You'd be like a forester with a minor in freshwater biology in order to understand the rainbow trout in northern Michigan. Or I think land has I think that must be what it is. I think land just has more specific avenues that you're going down. We do so much more on the land that it's got to be that's what it's got to be.
Yeah, could be. I don't know. But anyway, see, I haven't figured out the whole rabbit snail thing. You know, and
I've never been able to figure out like what they wanted to eat
or didn't want to eat,
or didn't want to eat.
I feel like they don't really go after Anubias and Java ferns, but I couldn't tell you what they do go after. I can just say like sometimes like, hey, that thing ate it. But I can't remember now because I don't. Like I wouldn't do like a full aquascape and be like, yeah, let me just drop like 40 of these things in there. But I'll keep them with shrimp and I feel like with low light aquariums I don't really have a problem because low light I'm usually doing Java ferns, Anubias, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But in high tech, it can be a little.
I don't know. I think for me, like it's more of that the rabbit snails will eat plants. So when I look at them, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm not appealed by their like.
See, I look at them a little more objectifiably and go.
But if I see ram's horns, if I see like really cool looking ram's horns, I'm like, oh,
because you know more about them. You're just your snap judgment. You see them as good, and you see rabbit snails as bad. And I'm just trying to train. I try to train myself to the detriment of my life, by the way, to always be like, I don't understand that, so I need to understand that. Much so that I literally will end up doing hours of research on driving, which is not to the detriment of me, but most people in their life, probably at age 34, aren't like, you know what, 6 hours, refresher course, and I need to understand the percentages why, you know, whereas most people are like, oh yeah, I took my driver's ed, got my test, and, you know, I just drive the way I drives. And so same thing with rabbit snails, like, I'm a guy that loves to punish myself, like, yeah, I haven't watched those do the thing I don't like in a while. Oh, that's why I got rid of them last time. Like, I don't know. Until I can really force my brain to remember, or I go, ooh, I hadn't tried it with that yet. You know, like, oh, maybe clown loaches won't eat them. Oh, they do. Dang it. You know.
Yeah.
So.
My mystery snails chow on my Anubias instead of my Soylent Green Repashy.
That's bizarre. That's
you would imagine they'd go straight for the Soylent Green,
think
you know?
But you know, Anubias is tasty. The more expensive it is,
the more expensive,
the better it tastes.
Yeah. Bucophilandra, right?
Mm-hmm. Tasty.
Bucophilandra.
Yeah.
That's got to be the most delicious, right? Like, especially the blue one, right?
Yeah, I don't understand why, you know, snails and, well, I guess my brain is like, I get why dogs, humans, other animals all have different personalities, but I feel like when you start getting down to like snail level, they're really low in the food chain and they should mostly all behave in the same manner, right? Like, just the lower you go, the less, for lack of a better term, cognitive function, I guess. You know, like making a choice whether like Repashy, Soylent Green tastes better or worse than Anubias. And maybe that's why they don't go to the Soylent Green, is maybe they're like, I'm already on this leaf. It's food too. Why would I go over there? Even if it does taste better or something like that. Maybe that is the reason of they're just like, it's pure opportunistic.
It could be. You might already just be geographically in the right spot. Like, I'm already on this Anubias, so I'm just going to eat it.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but maybe they have to get to a point where they get so hungry that they just go into the, yep, whatever I'm on, I'm going to eat. Like, maybe there's a trigger to it. So instead of like, you take 100 snails. Like if I take 100 mystery snails and I keep them the way I do, I've never really seen any of them go to Chowtown on Anubius. But maybe it needs like, oh, this pH plus this level of starvation or some other outside factor, and then they go into a mode of like, oh God, keep myself alive.
Right.
Because I'll do the same thing. Like I'm never gonna go eat leaves off a tree unless it was like I'm gonna die without it. And so there has to be something that triggers that. Because I'm not going to make a choice today where like, oh yeah, Jimmy and Joel, should we go to lunch? Nah, let's go eat. We've got some half frozen sticker bushes. Let's gnaw on those today.
Yeah, let's eat those.
So there's got to be something, because if you take away that, yeah, who knows? We need that biologist on here, Stat. I can already tell.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
So why do snails sometimes eat Anubius?
Right.
Like we can start asking those
I think
questions.
they'll probably just look at us like,
I don't know. That's not my area of specialties. Like,
you know that I can't answer that because the psychology of the snail has not been fully vetted yet.
It's probably that is most of the world is an enigma. I don't know. We haven't really studied
Shrouded
it. And when
in mystery.
When we do study it, we learn like 5 years later, like, oh, we weren't studying that in the correct manner.
Yeah, that was
Turns
wrong.
out totally different.
That was wrong.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah. So, what else we got today? I mean, we obviously have talked about driving and cleaning stuff. What else?
Can we talk about any loaches, or Hillstrom loaches, clown loaches?
We could.
Loachy
corydoras.
corydoras, corydoras, catfishes.
How do you classify those? Are they? I think just scavengers.
I classify them as kind of cleaner fish because they're
they definitely are cleaner fish.
But they are more scavenger, like clown loaches and stuff. Yeah, definitely more scavenger.
They're definitely opportunistic. Like, oh, there's food, I could eat. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't know. I would almost say that like Plecos are more opportunistic and.
Well, everything's got to eat.
Yeah.
But I mean, I do like. I think every fish in the right scenario is a cleaner. Like even guppies, like they'll like, oh, I'm numb and algae because I'm starving to death, or the babies are hungry and they're eating that stuff off the log. I think clown loaches. Well, maybe the scavenger, or at least the group we should talk about, is things with barbels. So there's catfish, there's loaches. Are there anything else? Well, there's like koi, but they don't use those barbels for feeling for food. So I would say anything that uses barbels as an appendage for food finding. So that would also lump in probably elephant nose fish, because they use that appendage to like feel around. So maybe there's a knife fish that does that as well.
Yeah.
And those types of things. They basically have all the whiskers and stuff, or an appendage on their face that allows them to feel in between rocks, and then they can pull food out of that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, so that's why like I've got a bunch of loaches and stuff in there, is there's all those rocks. We want stuff to clean in between those rocks.
Yeah.
And you could use like a super small snail or shrimp, or you can use something like, if you look at those clown loaches behind Joel podcast, sorry, but envision a clown loach, how they've got that slender long nose. That's for getting in between things.
Yeah.
And they will eat eggs and all that kind of stuff. In fact, I would say they eat quite a bit of eggs.
I'm trying to think of a freshwater sand sifter off the top of my head.
Geophagus?
Geophagus do.
Yeah, like Jurapares, the giraffe cats that are in there.
Giraffe cats do.
Although
all I was thinking of was saltwater once coming into my head. I'm like,
there's the Xenotilapia, the Lake Tanganyika sand sifters.
Oh yeah,
there's those little guys. But even like Epistogramas, if you put them on fine sand, and corydoras, they'll both sift sand if it's very fine. If it's anything but very fine, they just root around in it.
They just root around, yeah.
But I did do that. I switched the whole bottom row of the store over to fine sand.
Yeah.
Once I learned that tidbit, because I was having a lot of problems.
It's very important. Anything with barbels should have nice.
Well, all my sand was
smaller sand.
Was not eroding their barbels or anything like that. But I was having problems keeping Epistogramas at the store, and it was actually because myself and employees, we were trying to fatten them up because they were coming from wholesalers really skinny, and we were using too many worms. And the high protein load was causing some bloating issues. And we were trying heat, we were trying all these things. We're like, maybe it's like impaction, like maybe they're eating some stuff. And then we learned that they could, like in the wild, when you research it, they basically are sifting very small organisms out of the sand, very fine sands. And so I recreated that on the bottom row. It didn't fix the problem at all because we were still feeding bloodworms and live blackworms trying to fatten them up. The problem is they were coming in skinny. Now we know we pretty much use any substrate. It doesn't really matter for the Apistos. It needs to be at least 83. We like it at 85 for the Apistos, except for like Borelli. There's a few that like to be a little bit cooler. And then we feed them lots of like brine shrimp and other easily digestible foods. Like just lots of it very often. But if you like, I personally don't really feed both rams and Apistos bloodworms or live blackworms more than like once a week. Because let's say every time you feed it after the first, there's like a 10% more chance for them to get constipated. So if you're doing it 3 times a week, your odds are like 20% every week that you might go, oh, one of them got constipated. So I keep it to like 1, and then I follow it up with brine shrimp or an easily digestible flake or something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think with my Apistos and stuff like that, I don't go too crazy trying to feed them. I kind of just let whatever gets down there to them.
Yeah, so more of their natural feeding method in the wild, because they're in the wild. They're kind of scavengers, really. I mean, they're a pretty low level feeder, whereas like an archer fish,
like the Apistos that are in the 240, like they will not come up to the top of the water to feed.
Yeah,
they're just like, something's happening up there.
Well, that's probably a good point. A lot of times, fish won't come up if they're getting a food source. I mean, they also won't come up if they're like, oh, I come out and then that cichlid beats on me or something. But in an environment where that's not happening, if there's enough food, they're kind of like, why would I come out? You know, it's kind of like, if I have the best food to eat ever in this building, why am I going somewhere else?
Right.
You know, but, oh, we're out of food? Gotta go buy food.
You just got nothing but caviar and dreams in the other room.
That sounds horrible.
Caviar and
I would
dreams,
have to leave. I'd be like, eh.
Golden
dreams. How do you know what flake is easy to digest? In general, this is just in general, flake itself is easy to digest because there's a lot of fillers in it. And in general, fillers pass through the fish. Now, I have been testing, you guys might have seen that a while ago, some flake that's made primarily out of, the first ingredient's bloodworms, and another one, the first ingredient is brine shrimp. And so brine shrimp, things with shells generally have more filler, and so being more filler usually passes through a little bit easier, where real high proteins, it's harder for a body to digest. Like it's, you know. So yeah. But in general, and you'd have to look up specifically, and you could do more research on it, but in general, flake food tends to be not a food that really binds up fish, and that's why flakes, you know, through like 70s and 80s were like crazy popular, because it's not that they were new, but they came like into their heyday of like, look at this, I'm not having any problems because we're developing foods, we're making the vitamins better, the food's becoming better and better and better as years goes on, flake food is magical. Now we're just at a point where we're like, look at this, we've got infinite magical foods. You know, we've got almost anything, and we've gotten to the point where we can basically feed our fish candy bars all day long, and then we're like, hey, they got a little bit sick, and it's like, well, candy bar once a week ain't bad, but if you only eat candy bars, like, well, you might run into some problems. So yeah, I mean, there's lots of things going on. I'm trying to think, there's got to be other, there was another group of cleaners I want to talk about. I wanted to talk about the goldfish where I started the whole day. Right. Because they will eat, well, I won't say eat, but
somebody was actually asking in the chat earlier.
Yeah.
What's a good fish for an 800-gallon pond that can overwinter, that will clean some stuff?
goldfish.
There you go.
But I'll answer that also. So goldfish will typically eat anything that fits in their mouth, whether it's good or bad for them.
Yep.
So baby fish, snails they could choke on, rocks, brine shrimp, flakes, anything that goes there will go there. Plants, they can tug at them. They're going, hey, this kind of fits in there. I want to pull at it. But they'll also do that with hair algae. They'll take care of duckweed. They'll do, like, so I use them. I love them to clean duckweed and hair algae.
Yeah.
People are like, why is there a goldfish with all your tetras? Because the duckweed and the algae is easier to eat than those tetras. He usually eradicates that. And then I go, oh, time for you to move on. Because I don't want you eating those tetras. So I use them as a tool. And they're very good, or they can be very good at that.
Yeah.
Not all of them, just like one dog might pick up every piece of pizza off the floor, and another dog goes, too lazy to get off the couch.
Yep.
Sorry, bro.
Just not into it, bud.
But some other things you could overwinter that are kind of a cleaner as well would be, and obviously it depends where you live, some of that depends. But it would be the high fin banded shark, which is a loach. They get about 3 feet. They love to eat on a lot of algae, and they don't want to get too hot. So, like, if you're in Texas, it might not do well for you. At the same time, if you're in Wisconsin, it's negative 200 degrees. Might not do too well for you either. So there's definitely a range.
As long as the water's still liquidish.
Yeah. And depending on where in the country you are or where in the world you are is what will overwinter. So that's a little bit of a caveat there. But also I find the Japanese trapdoor snail to be quite good at algae control. They're a snail that will be a live bearer. And so they can populate to like, oh, God, there's lots of stuff.
Yeah. And one thing I would recommend that if somebody is in an area that's fairly cold and you want to overwinter stuff in your pond, and you are concerned, like, if you are somewhere in, like, Michigan, northern Canada.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to completely freeze, you would want to look at, like a horse trough heater.
Yeah.
Which will mainly just... A horse trough heater will just essentially keep the water at 40 degrees or whatever. Like, just not frozen. So it actually is kind of it's a fairly effective way to heat like an outdoor pond to keep the frost off of it in case you don't want it to freeze into a brick.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to get charged $40 a day for an extra, like a big giant hot tub outside. So
I did the math once where a 300-watt heater in the state of Washington running outside 24 hours a day cost me
full steam. Yeah.
Yeah, because assuming like let's say I have a 1,000-gallon tank and I drop one 300-watt heater in there, the math at the time, which was like 10 years ago at this point, so it's changed a little bit, it'd be $20 a month to run. Now, it basically only kept the water from freezing like way thick solid. Like the top would still freeze, and I could have done things like put a cover on it and do all these things, but I was trying to identify the viability of like...
Is that above ground pond or in the ground?
They were above ground.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was trying to figure out the viability of like, okay, I've got all these guppies and stuff out here. Could I overwinter them so I don't have to bring them in? I'm like, oh, if I got 4 bad months of winter, that's $80 per pond. If I'm selling some of the guppies, does it make sense? And the reality was a 300-watt heater couldn't really keep it warm enough to keep those tropical species I wanted anyway without really doing quite a bit of work. And so I gave up on that idea. But I didn't...
In ground will help out a lot.
It does, but it works a little bit both ways because of the thermal energy transfer through the ground. It helps keep it both ways. So it basically helps keep it at your ground temp, which let's say that's 55 in your area. If you're trying to heat it above 55, it's working against you a bit. But it also, let's say air temp's 30 degrees, ground temp's 55 degrees, but you want it to be 60 degrees. Being in the ground will help you more than not being at the ground at that point. But do know that you gotta like overpower what the earth wants to do and what the air wanted to do and things like that. So in the summer when air temperature is 100 degrees and your ground temperature is 55 degrees, it's helping you there, So it's a I don't know, what is it? It's almost like a buffer, a stabilizer. Maybe it helps keep
it's like
more...
insulation, basically.
Yeah, you're right. It's like this thing they call insulation that's designed to do exactly what I just spent 3 minutes trying to describe. Yeah.
Is that if you do add a little heat source in there, that it will keep the frost off of it and keep it from turning into a big giant brick of ice. Yeah. But it's certainly not going to keep it hot tub heat. You know what I mean? So that's what I would keep in consideration. But most of those fish can handle the overwinter. Yeah. You know, and they'll be fine. Like right now, the koi are all out there just swimming around and
chilling. I
thought it was snowing earlier.
I wish it was. God.
Your wife thought it was snowing.
I love snow. That's how you know me and my wife are a good match. I love snow, and she loves snow. So, it's a good time. We've got about 4 minutes left. Are there any questions we can lightning round out for people? Otherwise, we could just spend the whole time telling you to buy our stuff. Tune in for the next one. What do you want to see us doing? That type of thing. Because I know we're going to miss the next show. The Tuesday show, you're out of town.
Tuesday show, I am out of town.
But I'll be doing an 8-hour live stream on Monday, so that hopefully could tide you over till the next day.
I think that'll tide people over with the 8-hour show. So I guess we're in the last 4 minutes here. Normally we answer the super chats, but we answered those earlier. So, but either way, maybe there's some stuff in the chat we want people to talk about. But one thing I would recommend for people to do would be to either comment down below if there's something that you want us to cover. There are, both Cory and I have other channels also, like the Aquarium Co-op, which is probably what you know. If this is your first time to the Real Fish Talk, subscribe, hit the subscribe button for sure. Turn on all of the notifications. Call your mom, tell her that you love this channel and let her know, or share it out on Facebook. Then call your grandma, let her know how much you love it. Then she needs to tell her whole knitting circle.
That's actually true dedication. If you call your grandma, because that's like an hour-long conversation.
You gotta call your grandma.
When you're true, you're true diehard, you're willing to go, yep, let's talk to grandma for an hour.
You gotta let them know. I also have a different channel, and check out the Patreon while you're at it. The Patreon is what's helping us fund some of this stuff, like paying for gas and keeping the lights turned on and all that kind of stuff. So I know that Candy just posted those into the chat right there. Look at that, moderator.
There is a lightning round question. What's the worst cleaner fish for a beginner? I know my answer. I'll give my answer, and then you can be like, yeah, that was mine too. I say it's the common Plecostomus.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's like, oh yeah, that thing that's so obvious.
That's like what I was saying at the beginning of the show, when I wouldn't think to necessarily purchase a fish as a cleaner of the aquarium.
Yeah.
I normally want cleaner fish that complement the other fish that I have.
For sure.
Right? That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Making an ecosystem. And most people have too small of a tank for a common pleco. That's the big issue.
Yeah.
You're going to knock over your SpongeBob SquarePants pineapple house in no time.
They are really cool, though. I've had a couple of them, and we're talking about getting one of the wild caught ones that Dean brought back and putting it in there, just because an 800-gallon can at least house it longer before I'm like, oh, yeah, it's 3 feet, kind of outgrew the 800-gallon. Got to get a bigger tank. But if anyone was going to house one of those things, the 800-gallon is a good grow out for a while. So, and it's wild caught, and it looked wicked cool. Like, it was wicked cool. And it's not a true common, but it is in that, I don't know if I want to say genius, but it looks similar, but way cooler. Like, oh man, I've never seen one so colorful. Like, those colors are really popping. I don't know if it was just the wild caught diet or what was going on, but it looked real good. So, yeah.
54 Punchy's asking about Farewella catfish. Any tips? You got any hot tips for Farewellas?
My hottest tip I got for them is feeding a food that has at least wood fibers in it. And so I can think of two. There's probably more, but I can think of Sarah makes catfish chips, and it has wood in it. And then Rapashi has the morning wood, which also has wood in it. So either one of those would... it's not that that's the only thing you're gonna feed. It's that it helps supplement their diet, and mostly I think getting people in the mode of like, oh, I should have a food specifically for that one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Kelly Jarvis was asking, what's wrong with the pineapple house?
Nothing.
Nothing is wrong with the pineapple house.
Nothing wrong at all.
Except for the fact that it is too small for a common Pleco to live in.
True.
We're talking about a studio apartment for like Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
It's not good.
Yeah.
That is the only problem.
Yeah.
Too small.
So, all right. Well, we're hitting the end of the show. I'll be back on tomorrow. I do have a guest. Someone was asking, do you have a guest on Christmas? I don't have any guests. Other people are going to go visit their family. But tomorrow I do have a guest on my show, and it will be Jeanne from Inglorious Bettas. She happens to be in town to visit family for Christmas.
Whoa.
And she could have been on Christmas, but guess what? She's going to do Christmas. So that's why she'll be here tomorrow hanging out. She just wants, truth be told, she's like, I really want to come see the 800-gallon person. Can I come see it? And I was like, sure. But that day I got to be live, and she's like, oh, I'll be on. So, you know, she's willing to hang out with us and see the 800-gallon. And because if you guys don't know, like we had someone comment earlier, like, that 800-gallon doesn't look like 800 gallons. That's what everyone says until you see it in person. And you go, oh, like this room, like in the camera right now, you're going, yeah, okay, it looks like a 180-gallon. But in person, you're going, oh, yep, that's 800 gallons. There's no debate in that.
I don't know. I looked at it in person and I just went,
oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I know. You're hard to
I
impress,
did look at
though.
the acrylic work and I was like, wow, these cutouts are awesome up here.
Yeah.
Corey's like, what is wrong with your brain? I'm like,
I
I
actually wasn't thinking of that because I went with that manufacturer because of the way he routers and buffs and hand sands all the seams instead of flame polishing and doing all those kind of things. So I am a fan of that type of work. So, all right. Well, we have been live for 2 hours.
2 hours.
I now have someone showing up that we have to unload stuff to. And
we're going to load up a U-Haul.
We got to load up a
Old
U-Haul
school
full of
style.
tanks, and we got to get to work. And there's another show today, roughly 4 hours from now, on the Corvus Oskin channel. If you want another dose, what is the topic today? I forget. I read it yesterday.
Friday's Q&A, my bro.
Oh yeah. So bring the questions. We'll answer them. I would say it's highly unlikely we'll talk about driving again twice in one day.
Talk about
so you're probably
driving
safe
again.
from that.
Yeah.
But anything else could happen. You never know.
The fun thing, it could either be the fun thing or the not fun thing about my show is that it is kind of erratic and wonky, and we kind of go wherever we want. It's sort of freeform.
That's actually the combination of our channels. Is typically on my channel, I only talk about fish, dedicated the whole time. That's what I do. Your channel, a little more loose. So what's real fish talk? The merging of the two.
Pretty much.
Because
the
I knew I was
This is the peanut butter and jelly.
I knew I was going to burn out only talking about fish because I've covered, like, for instance, people are like, you should do one on guppies. We've done 4 live streams on guppies already. And at a certain point, I know they'll be like, no one's coming up with new topics, and we covered it a million times, and I don't want to completely burn out on you guys. So adding Joel to the equation, and then somehow talking for 30, 40 minutes about cleaner fish, then talking for 20 or 30 minutes about driving, and then when I could talk another 20 or 30 minutes about cleaning fish again, it's like almost like a little break, if you will, and it works out, at least for me, maybe not for you guys, but at least for me, and I don't know about Joel, but it's a better workflow of I can do that for hours a day doing that.
I can attest for everyone else. It works better for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you can't do that, but I can.
All right.
You know why?
Because you're superhuman?
Because I just can.
Well, that's good.
And I just did.
Yeah. Plus, let's say we talk about cleaning fish again in a month and a half. If we only talked about cleaning fish this time, you'd be like, I've seen that episode.
Right.
But if they're going to talk about other stuff too, you're more likely to chime in and be like, yeah, they might talk about marine biologists and
limnologists.
Driving and exactly, all this other stuff. And so it's the loose conversation we're trying to do here. And yes, there always is fish talk, but it is not going to be dedicated only fish talk because that is a burnout cycle that we don't want to get into.
Candy Fornian has a question here that I want to answer real quick before we go out. He I don't know, was asking, when are you guys going to talk about the EcoComplete substrate in depth? As a lot of people know,
like the cation
as a lot of people know me on the internet
Mr.
as
Cation.
Mr. Substrate weirdo where
Yeah.
I spaz out about dirt and stuff like that. We actually will be getting into that fairly soon. On my channel, we'll probably get into it on here because I'm actually making some videos on that as I set up the new cube tank. Once I get that set up, I'm actually going to do a breakdown on a bunch of substrates that are going to be going in there. So, as Candyfornian was saying, it would be cool to hear what I have to say on this topic. I have lots of videos on substrate topics on my channel. I love it, and I end up getting way too far into it, yelling at CChem about pumice and stuff.
Dirt nerd. I would actually love to actually get like, oh, you guys make Eco-Complete? Come on the show.
Yeah.
We're doing a show about Eco-Complete. That's kind of the goal. The goal is we're slow rolling some of these topics because I'm pretty sure if we just send to the company and be like, look, how would you like to actually come talk about your product? Because we want to talk about your product in depth because the internet want to know about your product. And we'll be fair and diplomatic.
The internet wants to know about your product, but the internet does not want to read your goofy stat sheet.
Right, because that's not real questions. Like, so I read here that this many microspecimens to the thing, and then the other conversions I don't know. Does it grow plants? Like they want to ask that question. How thick should it be? How much should I buy? How do you make it? How do you we want to answer all those things, and hopefully at least the right rep from a company. Like, I don't know if they got to send out their scientist or if it's just like, oh, no, this guy really knows it because he was there during the development of or whatever. We can at least have me, Joel, and that person and hopefully field most questions. And then, like, my job is to play devil's advocate. I'm not convinced. I'm going to need to see the, put them through the ringer a little bit. And then that's usually how we get a little more truth out of them. Like, okay, we did only test it for 6 months, and obviously it was only our company testing it, but here's what we found.
Right.
And I like it when people are just like, oh, that's what you get.
It's also one of those things that, like, oftentimes we don't see with advertising and stuff out there about, like, what a product might be, right? And it's oftentimes, I know you and I had a long conversation about this the other day, which is just, like, the wording that goes on the label of something.
Oh, yeah.
And you're like... some goofy videos that I've made in the past and stuff like that have had a lot of backlash from people, but at certain points in time, it's like there is a point where what it says on the label might be impossible to decipher against the fact that it might be something recognizable. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, great for plants. You're like, okay, what is it though? You're like, it's chicken poop.
It has a picture of a plant on it.
Why didn't you just say it was chicken poop?
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for hanging out. We'll get this uploaded, when we can, so you can listen to the podcast if you're driving, something like that. We do appreciate you. We appreciate you guys in the live show. We appreciate you guys supporting us and bearing with us while we get through these holidays and keep on building. Things are getting built, and right now I think I hear the U-Haul that showed up and the gate going up, so we got to help load up a bunch of stuff so we can clear the deck.
We got to go. Get out of here.
To build
sign
the
out.
new deck.
I can't sign us out, so he has to do
Goodbye.
it. Goodbye. See you in 4 hours.